Hey everybody, Johnny Cage here, welcoming you back to another game review. This time we're taking a look at SteamWorld Quest Hand of Gilgamesh, developed by Image Informed Games and published by Thunderful Group, released April 25th, 2019. Today we're looking at its release on the Nintendo Switch. Deck building is a mechanic that has existed for decades now, getting its start in physical collectible card games like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, but we have seen original deck building concepts in video games as well, from Triple Triad in Final Fantasy VIII to the more recent and very popular Slay the Spire, which melded together the deck building genre with roguelike elements to create a quick, addictive gameplay. Then you have SteamWorld Quest, which pulls a hold my beer type move as it takes a stab at integrating the entire RPG experience into a game based around crafting a deck representing your party. The story of SteamWorld certainly doesn't have the depth of a 60-hour JRPG classic such as the previously mentioned Final Fantasy series, but that's not to say it's particularly bland, as the events do build off one another, developing into a fine adventure story. But what it lacks in storytelling it makes up for in witty writing and enjoyable characters, whose adventure is easy to get wrapped up in. Throughout your journey, you will encounter 5 party members total, each of which you will be able to equip with weapons and accessories to your liking, and while your characters do level up in the battle, the real strength of your team will be determined by how well you can synergize your team's cards to create a deck that will have answers to every obstacle in your way. To create a deck, each character in your party will contribute 8 cards exactly, which are broken down into 3 different card types, that being Strike, Upgrade, and Skill, including different elements and status effects. Once you have selected the cards each character will be contributing, they are shuffled together into a deck, and once a battle is triggered by making contact with an enemy, 6 of them will be drawn to begin combat. In the top right of each card, there lists a cost in the form of cogs, which can be earned by playing cards that have no cost associated with them, and if you ever draw a hand that is particularly unplayable due to the cost, or it just doesn't help you in your given situation, you can always discard and draw 2 new cards by holding down X on the card you want to get rid of. The battling does have a great deal of complexity to it, as not only are you trying to put together the perfect 3 cards in your turn, but you also have the option of playing 3 of the same character's cards to trigger a heroic chain, which will automatically cast a 4th card for the round based on the weapon that character has equipped at the time. A move I found myself performing quite often, as the 4th card proved very useful in getting the upper hand in some of the tougher boss fights in the game, which there are plenty of. You can also perform a tag team combo, which activates when you play any card for the indicated hero before the card with the tag team effect in the same turn. And while with most of the boss fights in the game you will find yourself taking your time to plan your next move, you can get into a routine with the card plays in the basic fights. And the game does allow you to speed things up by holding down ZR, which is especially useful while traversing a chapter outside of combat, as your character does tend to move around somewhat slowly. Throughout the game, you will work your way through 19 different chapters, each varying quite a bit in size and difficulty, though in each of those you can usually manage to find the traveling merchant, whom you can purchase various items and gear from, as well as crafting materials which will be necessary to get you the latest and greatest cards available to add to your deck. Though you can find cards and treasure chests scattered throughout each area of the game, and always have the option after each chapter is complete of revisiting it at any time, either for grinding or to find any chests you may have missed. Sometimes the game brings cards to you, however, though, as characters will occasionally have an aha moment where they sort of discover a card within themselves, a literal heart of the cards, if you will. SteamWorld Quest retains the same art style as seen in previous SteamWorld game entries, that sort of paper cutout look to the characters on static backgrounds. It has a charm and detail to it that's perfectly fine for me, but don't expect any action outside of the combat besides pressing A to preemptively attack an enemy, which thankfully is quite easy to pull off. My big issue is just how large the characters are compared to the map sizes. The rooms can get quite crowded, making it difficult to avoid fights if you want to, and while the option is there to run, it will cause your party to retreat to the previous room where you came from, leaving you to have to try to get around an annoying enemy yet again, rather than giving you some invincibility frames to move on. The audio, much like the visuals, are nothing to write home about either. While it suits the events on screen, it certainly is not something that is going to stick with you once you have finished playing. And while the characters are robots and their dialogue comes out as jargon, which honestly I prefer over voice acting that's made to sound robotic, this does mimic what the developers have done with other games, so I'll give them a pass here. SteamWorld Quest costs $25 American with a file size of 1.1 gigabytes. The game will likely take you around 15 hours or so for most people to beat, but does include a New Game Plus mode where you can tackle a more difficult version of the game, carrying over your team from a completed file. There's also an arena to compete in where you can engage in battles that get increasingly more difficult. When it comes down to it, this game lives and dies on its deck building mechanics, which are very solid to be sure. And if you're looking for the next great game of the genre, this is a must-buy, especially one on the Switch that doesn't currently have the genre offerings other platforms do. Now, if you're interested in this game because it combines deck building with RPG mechanics, well, it might be worth waiting until you see this one on sale, as the story is pretty basic as I alluded to before, and the leveling up and stats gained by doing so are not nearly as important as how you build your deck. I hope in the near future a developer attempts to craft a deck builder that incorporates more fully fleshed out RPG mechanics, including a deeper story and more of an open world to explore. But all that being said, this is a great start in that direction, and I have no problem giving SteamWorld Quest: The Hand of Gilgamesh a solid 8 out of 10. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you would like to stay posted on new game reviews as I upload them, please click the subscribe button, as well as checking out the link in the description below for my Twitch channel where I stream most evenings. I'll talk to you all later on.